Good morning, everyone. When we chose this week's topic, which I don't know if you're aware, is called Living Superconsciously, or in some cases it's called Superconscious Living, whichever way you like it. When we chose this topic, I at least had a very different thought in my mind of how I wanted to approach this subject, because really it can be approached from many different ways. But 2 days ago, something happened, and that was Shamini posing a question to Narayani and me. A question that maybe you can resonate with. And the question was, don't we sometimes feel stuck in the spiritual path? Don't we sometimes feel stuck spiritually speaking? And if we do feel stuck, what do we do? What does one do? Now, after she posed that question, I couldn't give her any real answer because I myself feel stuck often, and more than I'd like to admit it. And I feel stuck sometimes in my sadhana. I feel stuck in my seva. I feel stuck in my achievement with God and Guru. And when I'm talking about superconscious living, I'd like to talk about living in joy. I'd like to talk about living in intuition, in that intuitive flow. But what happens when you're stuck? What happens when you can't even get close to that stage? What then? What's the first step to living superconsciously? That was what I was thinking, because when I feel stuck, living in joy is, a distant dream. What do I do then? When I'm stuck, how do I get even moving towards superconsciousness? And with that thought completely changed from what my original hope was, I was just reading some notes. Swami Kriyananda in 1979 created a course called Superconscious Living. Thanks to him for that. It's a fabulous course, just as everything he's done. And I was reading through it, and I came upon a definition by Yogananda of the subconscious. And I think I must have read it several times before, but somehow it just hit me in a new way. And the definition was, the subconscious is the convenient mechanism in the mind for minimizing the use of will in any undertaking. And what hit me was that how often do I live subconsciously? How often do I feel, let me put out the least effort. Let me take the path of least resistance. Let me not really, give complete myself to what I'm doing. And living subconsciously doesn't mean living like a zombie where we don't know what's going on. It's actually just when we minimize the use of our will, we're living subconsciously. And so by consequence, we can say, or we can hope to say, or give the definition to the superconscious, that the superconscious is that dynamic mechanism, not a convenient mechanism at all, for maximizing the use of will in any undertaking. And what hit me was really the first step towards superconscious living is the development of our willpower. Because without that, nothing else is possible. Without that, no progress can be made. I just finished a week ago a book that had just deeply inspired me. It's a book on the life of Joan of Arc. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. Joan of Arc was a French, now a saint, canonized by the church. But as most of these saints are by the church, they're never recognized as saints in their lifetime. And Joan of Arc was born in the early 1400s in France. And the situation in France at that time was very peculiar. They had been going through what was called the 100-Year War with England. And they were in some of their 96th year or something. And England had essentially taken over most of France. They were ruling France, and the French heir to the throne, the prince, the heir apparent, was in exile. He had no money, he had nothing. There was no army that France had. Whatever fighting was happening by individuals who were trying to gain France back, because the entire country was demoralized. They were so often defeated by the English. And this little girl living in a small little village somewhere, at the age of 17, is commissioned by God to go to the crown prince, tell him to make her the general of all the armies of France, and that she will defeat the English and drive them out of France. And so this girl goes about, it's just a fantastic story of this 17-year-old village girl, has no idea, but is commissioned by God to do so. So she does so. She finds a way to get to the king, which itself is so hard. Then she convinces the king to give him her control of all the armies of France. There is no army of France. So she raises an army. She creates an army. And in 1 year, defeats the English completely. And in a year and a half, is caught by the English and burnt at the stake for being called a witch, for being called someone who is in league with Satan. Because they needed to completely destroy her image to try to recapture France. Because as long as people remembered her as, she was called the Maid of Orleans, because that's the first victory she won. Anyway, when I finished that book, closed it, I had two main thoughts. One was, wow, what an extraordinary woman. But the second immediate thought was, Shurjo, shame on you. You call yourself a disciple, you call yourself a devotee of God. This is what it means. A maid of 17, a young girl, going out, conquering a country, raising an army, leading armies, creating battle plans, and really, it's just amazing what she did. And it's true she was being guided by God. It's true that she was being used by the divine, but what a fit instrument she gave to the divine to be used. Now, what do we offer often to God? We don't offer Him that much. We offer Him this. And sadly, it's not enough. If you want to live superconsciously, it's not enough. If you don't want to live superconsciously, it's fine. You continue the way you're living. But if you truly want to live superconsciously, it's just not enough. Superconsciousness is not just floating in the clouds like we'd like it to be. It can be that. But if you want to put a satellite up in the orbit, up in space, it takes a rocket with a lot of fuel, with a lot of power, with a lot of energy to break through the gravitational force of the earth that's holding us down. And what's holding us down? There's so much holding us down. We need that same energy to be able to break through that. And then once the satellite has broken through, everything drops down and it's just floating. And we think somehow we can just get there. We think that somehow that's living superconsciously. Living superconsciously starts from Earth. It starts from that rocket. It starts from building that rocket. It starts from giving all the right ingredients, making the instrument fit. There was a disciple, Yogananda's first Kriya Yoga disciple in America, Dr. Lewis, would always pester Yogananda. Give me samadhi, give me samadhi, give me superconsciousness, essentially. And finally, one day, when he asked for it once more, Yogananda said, if I give it to you now, can you handle it? Because we can't handle it. What will you do with superconsciousness if your body is not prepared? If your nervous system is not prepared? If your willpower is not prepared? What would you do with it? Nothing. You wouldn't even know. It wouldn't even come to you. We have to, superconsciousness, living superconsciously is cooperating with the divine, not depending on the divine, not waiting for Him to make our life wonderful and joyful and blissful. We have to do our part. Another disciple of Yogananda's, who was always very light, would make jokes of everything like me. Yogananda once said, don't constantly make jokes like this. Not everything is a laughing matter, essentially. And this disciple, being a disciple like we'd like to be, well, Master, with your grace and with your blessings, I'm sure I'll overcome this. Yogananda was not flattered. He said, my blessings are always there. God's blessings are always there. It is your blessings that are missing. Our blessings is our willpower. When we put our willpower into it, we're giving our blessings to it. So the next time we feel stuck, we feel, I'm not progressing, in my meditations, I'm not feeling that same peace, or I'm not progressing, I don't feel like something's happening, I don't feel like I'm in a divine flow. Of course you're not. Because you just have to look, what are you giving God? Are you giving Him enough? Are you cooperating with Him in the process? Yogananda started his mission, he started his lessons in the West with the energization exercises. All this while I thought that, because they were Americans, perhaps he started with the energization, because he couldn't start with meditation and God and such, so he lowered, it down for them. But no, he wouldn't do that. He knew that the energization is the foundation, because energization equals willpower. Willpower equals everything in the spiritual path. Willpower equals everything in this world. So, when next we're looking to touch those clouds in the sky and the sun, let's just ask ourselves, am I giving enough to God? If I'm feeling stuck, whose fault is it? Is it His? Is He not coming and we're so poor? Has He ignored us? Has He forgotten us? No. His blessings are always there. The Guru's blessings are always there. It's our blessings that's missing. So let's keep that in mind and really take to the energization exercises, at least. That's the least we can do. This morning I woke up and I said, I'm going to energize. Normally I'm like, okay, sometime during the day I'll energize. But no more. No more of this. If a little 17-year-old maid from a village can do it, believe me, we can do it. Many blessings.
Whenever we have to give the satsang, I usually tend to fight with Shurjo, who is going to be the first, who is going to be the second. And I want always for him to be the second, because after these kind of talks, it's just so difficult not to follow up with that. That was really wonderful. For me, when I was thinking about the whole subject of superconsciously, yesterday we were talking with Shurjo, I was talking with Shurjo. And really to understand what means to live superconsciously, we need to start by seeing the lives of the saints and just follow their example. What do they do to live in such a way? I had the great blessing and the privilege, of course, to be close to Swami Kriyananda, and he truly was a saint. He knew what meant to live superconsciously. Every morning, what Swamiji did, every morning he would wake up, he will do his energization exercises, he will meditate, he will pray for other people. Even if the previous night he had a very difficult time or he had a very bad sleep, he always greeted me with a big smile. If he had any suffering through his body, through his physical body, he never complained about it. In fact, he saw it as a blessing for an opportunity. He had a tremendous amount of energy. At his 18, he came to India. He started this work of Ananda India to share his Guru's teachings. He had an extremely refined intuition. He knew exactly what other people need, what was the right advice, what were their karmic patterns, so he could change them. He had amazing magnetism, willpower. He was very successful. He was able to tune into artistic way of doing things, very creative. Every day he wanted to make sure that things were done in a different way. He loved everyone. He was very kind. He didn't know what meant hate or anger. So he was very, he knew. He was in tune with the divine will. He loved God and his Guru. And I'm going to stop there because the list can be very, very long. And these are just a few words that could explain what it means to live superconsciously. Now let's pause for a moment and let's see in our lives, what are the obstacles that prevent us from living in such a way? For many of us, it's just the attitude that we have towards life. And for most of us too, it's just the tendency to give in to moods. Moods actually are very helpful because we can see, once we have overcome them, that how our vision of reality is conditioned for what we are rather than by what we actually see. Let me give you an example. Moods are like color lenses, glasses. Let's say, for example, that their color condition our reality. For example, let's say that we choose to wear a red colored glasses. Everything will be seen in red color. Carpet will be red, the walls will be red, the sun will be red, the color will condition our reality. We rather choose a green glasses, everything will be green. Your faces will be green, your clothes will be green, everything will be green. But what happens when we choose to wear a transparent glasses? We see things how they truly are. There is no color that condition our reality. Moods are like those glasses. They condition our reality. And it's up to us to choose what kind of glasses we want to wear. To live superconsciously means to wear constantly those transparent glasses, and we can choose that. It's so interesting because Master himself didn't allow any of his disciples to be around him when they had a mood. Master said, I suffer so much when I see you in a mood because I know that Satan gets a hold of you. Swami Kriyananda once fell into a very, very deep mood. It took him many weeks to overcome it. One of the evenings, he was in that mood and he saw Master. And Master said, how are you doing? And Swamiji was about to, in this kind of mood, oh, well, and Master stopped it right away. Very good. He stopped it, got it right away very strongly. He didn't want for any of them, for any of us, to fall into that kind of consciousness. In fact, Swami Kriyananda, again in that period, he said it took him tremendous amount of energy and willpower to overcome that. Master, when he saw him next time, he told Swamiji, no more moods, otherwise how will you be able to help people? How will you be able to live super consciously? That was the kind of training that Master gave to his disciples. That is the kind of training that we need to do with ourselves. That's the kind of force that we want to put into our consciousness, into our mind. I just want to finish with a very interesting story, because at the very end of Swami Kriyananda's life, there was a period where he couldn't sleep very well. So, in fact, I couldn't sleep very well. I spent most of the nights awake, and I needed to take care of him. It was a period when he was involved with the Finding Happiness movie. He had many meetings, personal interviews. So anyway, there was just 1 or 2 weeks that I felt extremely tired. One of the mornings, I showed up, and of course I wanted to help him whatever he needed. And I start sneezing, achoo, and I was helping him and just listening, achoo. And the thought came into my mind. It was a very bad thought, but the thought came. So wonderful. I think I'm getting sick. This will give me an opportunity just to have the day off. Perhaps I can just spend the whole morning in bed. I was having those thoughts while I was helping Swamiji. Achoo, and I was getting so excited because I was getting sick. At some point of that sneezing, I think it took just 1 minute, he just stopped, looked at me very, very seriously, and he said, "Can't you use your willpower?" And of course, he wasn't telling me, "Can't you use your willpower to stop sneezing?" He was directly talking to my mind. Are you able to cooperate with what is going on? Are you not able to put enough energy? Are you not able to put the right attitude that it takes? Are you really giving up on this one? Are you not able to live super consciously and keep your energy as high as you can? Are you trying to find any excuses possible to run away and not face it and not raising up your level of energy? That was a great lesson for me, because that is what it takes. Just in very little things, little situations, and how many times throughout the day we give up. We don't want to face it. We don't want to put the willpower, as Shurjo was saying. It's very important for us to understand what it takes. What it takes to live at the top of the mountain. Because when we are in the valley, we only see the grass, the little ants, the trees around us. But when we are able to climb the mountain and be at the top of it, we will be able to see the cities, the mountains, the lakes. That's what it means to live super consciously, to live at the top of the mountain. So let's make an effort, each one of us, throughout the day, to really ask ourselves, where are we right now? Are we at the valley? Or are we living at the top of the mountain? Thank you.